As I said earlier, I'm going to have to change out the master cylinder and slave cylinder. So slave cylinder is the hardest, most difficult. And it's not even that bad, all things considered. But first off, this piece here has to come out. And there are 2 screws here which need to be removed, one on either side. Have the brake all the way up, have the car in a forward gear, such as first or third. First step is to remove the H bracket or bottom of the dash support. Mine was never fastened down since I bought the car, so there it is for now. We'll fasten it down properly later on. Here's the piece that I just removed, which is the trim. Next, this car is equipped with overdrive. There's a little tab below it's where the black plastic meets the chrome. And you can see it right here. I've already removed or loosened it. But if you see that little tab right there on top, take a screwdriver, gently pry it up. Should just pop right off because it's spring loaded. Then you'll notice that down on the inside, I'm not sure exactly what they call that type of nut, but it basically takes a special wrench. But it appears to be loose, so I think I can probably work it loose with a standard flat blade screwdriver counterclockwise. Neglected to mention, what one will need to do first is there is a locking ring. This piece right. See, here's the shift knob, and this chrome locking ring right here. I've already got it loose. It was a 9/16 open-end wrench that you take in there, and you basically loosen it a turn or two. And then what you'll see is that this knob can move up and down, but it's because of that nut that's inside there, it cannot come off just yet. I think I'm going to have to remove the overdrive switch, taking note that the blue wire will be on the driver's side, the brown ground wire will be on the passenger side. You will note that these are the barrel type connectors that fit onto the, I take it, yeah, I guess they are a barrel type, they're round, that fit inside there. Now, because these switches are, I think they're still available, but I'm sure it's not cheap, I will put that up here in the ashtray, or I guess they call it a change compartment these days. Ashtrays are politically incorrect. Anyway, that'll be a place for safekeeping. And this piece is not wanting to come off with the simple taking the screwdriver on the 2 flats and trying to turn it counterclockwise. It's not wanting to come off. So I think I'm going to have to see if I have. It seems like I had purchased the special tool once before. Well, here I was all proud of myself, having the Moss tool set for switch bezel removal, part number 384960. As you can see, this little tool's got the 2 little nubs on the end there. I was all proud of myself thinking I had this made, because this tool is basically made for, on many Triumphs and stuff that have an instrument on the dash like an idiot light or something, for removing that. But guess what? I put this on here, I slide it through there, and the diameter is slightly too large to fit between the 2 flats here. So now I've got to go to plan B. So plan B will involve taking a needle nose, and you can do it one of 2 ways. Hopefully, if you can just get it on the 2 flats like that and turn it, or there's enough room in here where you can only get a couple of degrees of movement, but as you can, if I can zoom in here, as you can see, I'm barely turning it. And there shouldn't be any torque on this, because the lock nut below it is what's actually securing it in place. So once you relieve this lock nut here, there's 2 flats on here for a 9/16 open end wrench. You can turn this, you can see how that turns. Bring that down, and that way then you can get inside there and work that. I'm not sure exactly, there's a term for that nut, but the name escapes me. but remove that fastener. And I know this is tedious, but once you get it up a little bit, then you can probably grab it just from one end, like so, and then rotate it like that. Then you can get a lot more movement, maybe 45 degrees to 180 degrees of rotation, because it's coming up above those flats. So as you can see, I now have it removed, and this is what that little rascal looks like. Just a simple little nut. And once that's done, then the knob itself can simply lift off. Again, you want to be very careful because these wires can be delicate. They go up through the center of the shift lever rod. Next will be to take this lock nut, for lack of a better way to describe it. It's got a tapered finish, chrome plated, and then remove that. I keep everything again stored up here in the ashtray just for safekeeping. And then now we can remove the carpet which is in the way to expose the original transmission cover. I'm not sure if this car was ever supposed to have a choke on it or not, being it's a 79 model, but even so, this was all this was loose. It was not fastened correctly. We'll get all that buttoned up when we finish the project. When you buy a car like this, there's always going to be a myriad of issues. You're always paying for other people's sins, other people's haste. But just be patient. If anything is irritating, aggravating, stop, have a beer, walk away from it, come back tomorrow. Keep it fun. So now I'm just gently pulling this carpet away from here. This is the original carpeting, I believe, for this car. This car has about 74,318 original miles, and you can see this is the original fiberboard, which is very rare. These always tended to get eaten up, chewed up. They would disintegrate over time. This one looks to be in remarkable condition. Most people replace these with either a fiberglass or a polyethylene unit. And of course, this also has there's this metal plate on here. Not sure if that's going to have to come off or not. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But the first thing we have to do is go around the perimeter to these various fasteners. And they should be fairly straightforward. It looks like all I have to do is just give them a couple of turns and then remove the elongated washer, which will basically slide out once it's, you can see what it looks like there. Here's a better example. You can see what it looks like. Okay, if these are the original fasteners, then these will be 5/16, which I'm going to simply just back it off a couple of turns, and then this should be good enough, maybe a little bit more than a couple turns, but enough to relieve the tension off of it. And then this should just slide right off like that. And then repeat the process like so around the perimeter. Yeah, see that one come up nice and high. This should just be able to lift right off. But somebody put a somebody put a flat washer in there, so somebody's been in here once before. So we may be able to get it off. There we go. Yeah, we can get it off. Anyway, you can see there's one there. Don't know if there's one over here in the corner or not. Look behind the accelerator pedal. Yep, there's one up there in the corner, right back in there. You don't need to see all this. This is tedious, but you get the general idea. It would be a good idea to go ahead and just remove the screws, machine screws that is, and because you don't want to. This fiberboard is rather delicate at this point. Here's the two holes where the H bracket was supposed to be fitted. But you can see these are basically screws, okay? And there will be a corresponding piece of stamped sheet metal underneath there that is basically slid, and it's got a kind of a clamp on it, and then it's actually attached to the body tub. I'll show them to you later. So the ashtray is starting to get a little bit crowded with fasteners, and obviously this was a good idea for 1 or 2 or 3 items, but it's getting to be a bit much now. So I'm a strong proponent of buying these 1-quart freezer bags over at the local grocery store, and they are freezer bags, so they're a little bit heavier in gauge. As you can see, it's a bag and tag. It'll save a whole lot of aggravation down the road. Remove the 4 crosshead screws which secure the metal plate that holds the shifter boot in place. This is what the shifter boot looks like with the metal plate underneath it. Looks like it probably could stand renewing because this is not exactly sealing very well, unless there's another seal that's absent in here. But you can see how this one's a little bit different, and here's the metal clips which allow the crosshead screw to secure the ring in place. Okay, the dilapidated original cardboard or fiberboard transmission cover has been removed, revealing everything inside here. Looks like I've got some vacuuming to do, and hopefully this should allow me to get better access now. Yeah, there it is right there. There's the slave cylinder, and it looks to be highly suspect. Before you remove the slave cylinder, complete with the mounting bracket, I'd recommend first breaking loose the hex fastener here with this type of wrench. This is a flare wrench. Also, probably be a good idea to loosen that pinch bolt while this is still fastened and you have something secure. I also highly recommend putting a catch container of some sort to catch the hydraulic fluid, as it's basically DOT3 brake fluid, which is very corrosive and will remove paint. Now the 2 flange bolts. The bottom one's a little bit difficult to get to, but not too bad. There's enough clearance back there. And once you have the flare fastener disconnected, then move it off to the sides. It's going to drip a little bit, but you have the catch pan underneath there. And now it's just a matter of simply extracting it. I guess I don't have the bottom bolt undone all the way. There we go. There's the bolt. There's the 2 bolts that came out. They both have a 1/2-inch head. And then this just simply disengages like that. And I'd say this has been leaking for a while. This looks pretty grungy. Now the pinch bolt here might be a little reluctant to come out, so as you remove the nut, always have the nut on the threads, and when you're hitting it gently with a hammer or a wrench or something, not too aggressive, but basically what you want to do is back this out slowly, and then once it's out so far, sometimes you can simply take a wrench on the back of this and turn it anti-clockwise, and it'll come right on out. If it doesn't, then take a punch or a nail or something, again being mindful not to damage the threads. Once you drive it out, then what I found in my case was this housing was literally still stuck to the 2 aluminum pieces because of the corrosive brake fluid. It kind of, I wouldn't say welded it together, but they were seized pretty tight. So then what I did was, being mindful of the diameter of the slave cylinder itself and being mindful of the flange there, put that on your vise like that, and then I simply took, probably should have used a little mallet, but I just used the back of my 3/8 drive ratchet, and I just kind of tapped it down. And of course, I've already had it loose, but it took a couple of whacks, but not too hard. And then, of course, you clean up everything, and then the assembly is the reverse of the disassembly. Now we begin the task of cleaning up the parts we're going to retain, such as the bolt, the nut. We're going to find another lock washer for that, and the other bolt that attaches this assembly to the bell housing. Well, here is the mess that we left off with, and you can see just the general grime and stuff. I think the easiest way, since I have a catch pan underneath, is just to go ahead and spray some brake cleaner in here. See if we can dissolve some of those deposits. This stuff dries very quickly. Smells pretty good too. So after about 10 minutes of cleaning, first be sure that you wear safety glasses, proper PPE. Was able to achieve, and then cleaning the inside with a hand wire brush, was able to clean up the parts reasonably decent. Of course, all the fasteners look good. I was able to find another lock washer, and of course the new wheel cylinder. This will likely be discarded unless I feel up to getting a rebuild kit, but as inexpensive as they are. But I'll take it apart, see what the bore looks like. If the bore's pitted, it gets chunked. I like to test fit everything first. Of course, removing the rubber seal from the edge of the slave cylinder. I thought this would simply drop right in, because the purpose of this bolt right here was to lock it in place against this flat that's on here, right in here. But it's a very, very tight fit. So what I'm doing is I've managed to drive it in a bit with the hammer, but now I'm going to have to use a 21mm socket, and I'll place it on there and I'll tap it down a couple of times. That only took a couple of whacks and it came loose. I attribute this part was made in Taiwan, which is a little better than China, but it's the Republic of China, and their tolerances leave a lot to be desired. So again, what I'm probably going to do is just kiss this OD, it's aluminum, just kiss it ever so gently on the grinder, just so that it slides a little bit easier through there. Because I could possibly take a hone in there, but because it's an interrupted cut, I'd probably ruin my stone. So I think I'll just try the first to see how that works out. I've gone ahead and inserted the slave cylinder in from the right side going left. And if you look carefully, you can see barely, right about in there, the flat. Now that flat needs to move over probably at least another half inch, 3 or 5/8 of an inch. And so what I'm doing is I'm using the hammer, but you'll find, gentle pressure, seeing if I can tap that in, because this fit for that rubber boot is extremely tight against this piece here. I'm hoping that it will stay in place. As I've said countless times before, there's no substitute for having the right tool. A simple rotary tool with a barrel type disc, I was able to go in there and very easily remove this corrosion, which I believe made the part grow a little bit, probably just expanding. So I simply removed the corrosion, and by doing so, now if I can do this with 3 hands, now the slave cylinder Well, so much for that idea. It didn't work out, because when you put the bellows back on here, you can see how the OD grows substantially, making it impossible to push it in from this direction. So I'm confident it's going to have to go in from this direction, like thus. However, if you look here, this amount, there needs to be some material removed from here to allow that to fit in there, because as you try to put the slave cylinder in from this direction, because this is the wrong dimension, it forces off the dust boot. So what I ended up doing with the Dremel was just getting a little bit aggressive on this part here, going in about maybe a ½ inch or so, but just cleaning up all that corrosion, I guess. And now when you put this part in from this direction, I can almost do this with one hand, where this part just slips on very nicely. And look how she goes down. The slot which is there for this bolt to go down and lock everything in place, and the belt, the rubber bellows here is right where it's supposed to be, right up against the end here. So I was wrong in my initial thought that it needed to be removed a little bit more for this relief. I guess it's just the fact that maybe this aluminum part on the slave cylinder was a bit oversized. Now you can see the bolt is through, and it's exactly where she needs to be. I'm sure if this is a recommended practice, but this is anti-seize lubricant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit in that bore. I know, well, this is basically probably a zinc alloy, and this is aluminum, or aluminium for you folks on the other side of the pond. But point being, usually when you have two dissimilar metals, you'll get the electrolytic action. I wouldn't think there'd be that much interaction between a zinc and an aluminum part. But I'm just going to put an ever so slight layer on there. Can't hurt anything, just to prevent it from maybe seizing the next time. Just paying it forward. And I did put some anti-seize on the shaft here, because this has a tendency, this is carbon steel, and that definitely will seize up against that. I'm sure if any of you were paying attention, but basically I had this part the other way around, and I wondered if it was too easy, but needless to say, still, I put it back in the proper direction, and I think we're on the right track. It just has to go another ½ inch or so. So we'll try it again here. As we say here in Texas, now we're cooking with gas. So it was able to slide in. I was able to wipe off the excess anti-seize, which this gets all over everything, but I'd rather have it there than not have it. And I was able to simply put the bolt in. I'll put the lock nut on in a moment, and then we will go ahead and attach this to the car. Not that it's going to make an appreciable difference, but I noticed that the bolt on the right is just ever so slightly 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch longer than the bolt on the left. So we don't want to put something too big into a hole that's too small. I'll leave it at that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this screwdriver and just put it inside the bell housing, and because I'm not sure if it's a through hole or a blind hole. So we're back under the dash again, and this hole here, let's see, that appears to be a blind hole, and it's about that deep. The hole on the top is about that deep, which they look to be plenty deep. I'll put this one in the bottom one again. Oh, you got to do this by feel. Yeah, so the hole in the bottom is more shallow than the one on top, so I will put the longer bolt on the top. Okay, just got done doing a quick bench bleed on this. Basically, I'd taken a funnel and attached it here, had the brake fluid going in. Had a hose, tiny little hose such as this here, going into a can. First I installed the 3/8 box end wrench on here, then the hose. Had the hose looped down into a can, put the brake fluid in there till it got about this high. And then I took the screwdriver here and I pushed up on the piston of the master cylinder. And then once it was all the way up positioned, then I closed the valve. And I repeated that cycle several times where I would push the piston up, open the valve, then close it. And it only took a few, 2, 3, 4 strokes to purge the air from the system. As it's written, the assembly is the reverse of the disassembly. So the longer bolt went on top, the bolt that was slightly shorter went on the bottom. The supply line is secure, the pinch bolt is secure. Now we're ready to tackle the master cylinder and purge it once and for all and see if we have clutch. Okay, bleeding the air from the system is a simple procedure of putting your wrench on the bleeder valve, then put your hose on into some type of collection bottle, and as you depress the clutch pedal down, you will crack open the valve counterclockwise and allow the air bubbles to come out, and then note what happens. I'm not sure if I can do this as I don't have 3 hands, but I'm going to set this down as best I can and see if it's going to capture it. That may or may not stay like that. Let's see. It's not looking good. We'll try something else. This might work. So with my left hand, I put it on the clutch pedal. The right hand I have on the flare wrench, 3/8 inch, and I'm going to push the pedal down about halfway, crack open the valve, as the keep downward pressure on the valve, on the pedal, and then close the valve. And I've already done this procedure once or twice, and believe I've purged all the air. And the proof will be when you depress the clutch pedal. If you see, and you should be able to see it from here, the if I can get the light in there just right, you can actually see the clutch fork being moved. Yeah, I can see it there. You have to look in through here, that area right there. You can see the clutch fork going in, and the pedal feels about right. So we'll see what happens. And finally, when I'm done, I usually like to go in here and just wipe everything off with a disposable shop rag, and then spray down some brake cleaner, just like that, and that will evaporate very quickly. And once that's done, then go ahead and install the little rubber protective cap on here. And so now things all appear to be relatively dry. I'm going to depress the pedal a couple of times just to make sure that I'm not getting any, revealing any leaks, and it all looks good. I'd also like to make mention of the fact that I did not replace the master cylinder, as it appeared to be relatively new. Of course, when you're done, go back and double check the level of the fluid in the clutch master cylinder reservoir, and then tighten the cap accordingly. And this was never broken loose. The only place it was broken loose was down at the slave cylinder. So the extra master cylinder that I bought, we'll tag it, put it in the box of parts for the future. And if it goes bad, well, then it's just a simple matter of changing it out from here. But since it looks like it's relatively new, I'm not going to go through the process right now. Okay, let's see what happens here. There's first gear. Second. Reverse is not wanting to engage. And I thought I wasn't getting enough movement from the pedal, so I'm going to go ahead and purge the system one more time. Yes, I'm still getting a few air bubbles, so obviously the system's not purged. And only 2 or 3 pumps of the pedal, and you can see how far down the reservoir has gone. What you don't want to have happen is for this thing to go dry, because then you got to start the process all over again. So after 2 or 3 pumps, check the level for your top up. After you top it up, put the cap back on, because it will have a tendency to splash up and down. Okay, engine's warmed up just a little bit, and the idle's come down a little bit, which should help. But here we'll go first gear, no problem. Second, third, and fourth, and then we'll do for reverse. There's reverse, and lit up on the clutch. The car moves a little bit. Back to first. So I'm going to call it good. Button up everything.